And while I'm shuffling, you can perhaps intro maybe.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Jono and Dan Chew the Cues. And this one is just Jono and I. We don't have a guest, and this question did stem from a conversation that I had over the weekend, over the Queen's birthday weekend, when I was out doing some work on a farm and removing some weeds, and just sort of casual conversation with the people there. And it's quite a tricky one. So I thought it deserves its own episode of Jono and Dan Chew the Cues.
It's a chewy one.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
Dan did send me an email saying I've got a particularly chewy cue. Let's have a nibble. No, he didn't say that. But that's
Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is choose one of Vanessa Jane Smith's wonderful Be the Change cards.
Yep.
To set
You
us
haven't
off.
got one of these. Is that reading right or no?
Yes, it is.
That's pretty cool. All right, so here we go. I've shuffled well. I'm going to just open, select. This is wow. Okay.
Step aside. Make space for
Others. Man. We are the creators of space.
And
then, yeah,
man. Step aside. Let nature take control.
Yeah, let nature take care of us. 45. Let's go through. And so the other really cool thing about Vanessa's cards is you go through the book and you go to the number, which is 45. And then it will have here a little thing, which this one's nice and short. So I'll just read it. Rest your mind and listen in. In the silence, whose thoughts do you hear most? Can you step out of the thoughts in your own head and hear beyond? Are there any other voices audible? What are they saying? What newness do they bring to the situation?
Right. Well, with that, I will throw my question out. And I've built it up. And as I told Jono before we started this call, I'm a bit nervous because I've probably prepared too much and I just need to step aside.
Isn't that a profound card selection based on that?
Yeah. So the question was, what is it about regenerative agriculture that compels you the most? And so why do you believe in it?
Wow. Why do I believe in it? Do you want me to go?
Yeah, I'm stepping aside.
Okay, man. Yeah, and I was wanting to do that too. There's no one else. Yeah, it's for me. What compels me the most is I've seen, and I've only been in this space for 6 or 7 years. The regenerative space, I've seen the profound impacts on farming systems, on ecology, on sociology. Is that a word? Sociology? Yep. Being all fancy here. I've seen the impacts on people. I've watched people come alive. I've watched their businesses burst into life. I've watched landscapes develop and change, and I've watched up and coming generations develop interest and curiosity and fascination about the natural world. And I'm excited to see the things that I haven't quite seen yet as vividly as the stuff that I've just mentioned, that being likes of the impacts of human health and the impacts of the larger statistics around mental health and suicide, which they may be happening right now. I would assert they are, but the scale of those metrics are so huge that we've got a lot of room to catch up on. And just the profound shift it's had on me personally. My life is not recognizable, going from being ego driven to being eco driven, to being part of an ecosystem as opposed to the puppet master. There's a sense of freedom and joy, and I see things now that I heard Nicole Masters say at Boma at the Utipu Summit about how when you change the way you view things, the things that you view change.
Yep.
And it's so true.
Yeah.
Including your perception of yourself, that man in the mirror.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you view things how they could be.
That's it, man. That's what keeps me going, is I see possibility. And it's vivid. It's so vivid. And that's what's there for me whenever someone tries to cut me at the stake. Whenever someone tries to take me down or take the movement down, is that vision for me is so clear that it just keeps me on track. Even when all the odds are stacked up against me and all the circumstances are not in favor of this thing progressing, that vision keeps the progression alive.
Yeah, so you said it was a real experiential thing, like you felt the difference with regenerative agriculture just on yourself, how it changed you, and that was a key part of why you are compelled by regenerative agriculture as a movement, and you've seen it change the landscape, and you've seen it change the people you're working with and communicating with. So it's all coming from your own direct experience rather than perhaps having a lot of scientific backing and evidence in an empirical way. It's an experiential understanding of the effects of looking at things through a regenerative lens.
Yeah. And it's not information, because there might be such a thing, but in my experience, the science and solid data that you speak of, that this is not this realm of experience, is not the sort of thing that leaves you moved or inspired. The experience that we're talking about here is a big picture experience, and one that leaves me deeply moved and inspired.
Yeah.
The sort of inspiration that leads to bold action.
Yeah. So you've got the inspiration from the direct experience, and also there's this looking at the possibility and looking at the potential, and it's almost like that's what you do with the uncertainty. Like you've got what you experienced, and you're inspired by that, and then as well there's a bit of uncertainty, but that uncertainty is the potential. Like that is the source of what could be.
Yeah, and it's inspiring.
Yeah. And I wonder whether that uncertainty that can be viewed as what could be an exciting possibility can be seen through other lenses as a very scary thing.
Yeah, definitely. And or a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Like, get this man some help.
Yeah. Yeah, like I listened to your presentation at the Boma Summit And you talked about being offered that job, which was just a crazy idea on an organic farm when you were a chemical specialist. So that, I guess that was the craziness. That's the complete weird uncertainty.
Mm. Yeah, uncertainty, but it's beyond uncertainty. It's like what's the word? Excuse me, as I'm sipping on a bit of lemon ginger kombucha. It's quite nice actually. Um, so there's crazy, which and uncertainty, and then there's this craziness that is almost certain, like depending on your perspective, like it's certain crazy, and then there's like this big thing, but what if, or like what, what is it about this almost certain chaos or craziness that I want a taste of? And maybe my life was just too boring and straight lined and I knew everything, and we want to go to this place where we know it all. And people don't think about, well, what happens when you get there? Well, I felt like I got there and it was boring.
Yeah.
And it was like maybe I was hungry for a bit of chaos, and I didn't know what was under that leaf when I was to turn it. And I turned it, and then there was this hole. And I didn't just dip my toe into the hole, I dived into it.
Space.
And I've not seen the bottom yet. Can we take that out? That's a nice wee quote. I might take that out. When I went to turn the leaf, yeah, I'm gonna. Isn't it funny the things you say, and then
Yeah, in the moment.
in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you.
Anyway, I'm gonna step aside now.
Okay. So, I'm just fascinated, just connecting with what you're saying. And like when you got there to the point of knowing everything there was to know about chemicals and how they were going to improve your operation through killing all the weeds and all the pests and making your crops grow better. Once you got there, it was boring because there was no uncertainty, there was no newness, there was nothing nothing that's wonderful. It's just
Yeah,
it's all known. And then you created that space. Like, wow, what could be under this rock or under this leaf, did you say?
the leaf. Yeah, maybe I should have used rock, man. And maybe there was lots around me, but I couldn't see it. Maybe there was lots of new wonderful things, but from the context of I know everything.
Mm.
Do you think I could be taught? you know, People might have shared with me wonderful, amazing opportunities or possibilities, and I would have just been just like it was like today. I was doing a recording with the country,
Mm-hmm.
and they said to the Rowena asked me a question. Oh man, I just slipped my train of thought. What were we just talking about?
Find the space under a rock.
And then we went into knowing it all, not
Yeah.
knowing it all,
Yeah, and you couldn't be
possibility,
taught.
couldn't be taught. Yes. Um, it was brought up the question of, what do we say to the skeptics? And when I look at my life and my perspective of the way I was in that space of knowing it all, if I'd seen some guy on a video or anything like that in any place of influence, suggesting what you and I are talking about right now as a possibility? Nah, definitely not. And so I can see for myself what's in the way because I've been there,
Mhm.
and it's just this fear of not knowing. Because
Mm.
we often, a lot of farmers in New Zealand are, world leaders, and we have this context of we're world leaders in food production and protein production, and that may be true. There's some truth to that. And should anyone suggest anything outside of that paradigm as a possibility, so hang on a minute, we're world leaders. We're feeding the world. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no one can teach us.
No, I already know. I'm qualified even. And I've got all the scientists on my side. Do you know Doug Meads? Maybe you should check him out. He'll back me up.
Hmm. I'm thinking about regenerative agriculture as a more root focused approach to agriculture than what perhaps we're used to in a conventional sense. Like both literally root focused and also metaphorically, we're looking at the root causes of what what farming's all about. And it's about people, it's about the environment and resilience and healthy food and trade rather than less root things like um, how much grass production per year and when's the right time to irrigate. That's not really a root
Mm,
thing, is it?
no. And it's not common to talk about root things. I just like to
Mm.
share in this moment a discussion that I had last night, a brief one over the table at dinner with my partner Ruby, and she's stepping into management of the dairy farm she's worked on since she left university, and she's creating a system that works for her as a manager to align her new staff with for this up and coming season. And she was looking at a pamphlet on these collars that go on cows, and she was reading in this book, and she was really compelled by the book, like to the point where before she thought that these collars were ridiculous and soon we won't need farmers. Farming's just going to be taken over by robots and no one will need any skill to operate on a farm.
Mhm.
And then she read this pamphlet, and what came out of it was like the ability to detect subclinical acidosis with this collar. I have no idea how it's going to do that. Uh, and the ability to detect lameness before it comes on, the ability to detect mastitis, the ability to test for when cows are cycling, ability to test for when cows are about to calve or calving, as well as lots of other things. And also rumination percentage, somehow telling. So anyway, um, what the discussion we had was around was everything that this product is offering is are symptoms of low performance or low function or low resilience in any farming system. Like if you've got healthy, thriving soils and pastures, you've got animals that will cycle, that will get in calf, that will produce milk, that will ruminate, that will calve easily. Not every time, but she was able to then see that for herself. She really was able to step back and see, wow, I I can see why I want that thing, because all these uncertainties in our systems because of our systems. Excuse me. And what it's not doing is looking at any root causes. And when you start talking root causes, all of these things that we spend money on and potentially have policies based on go out the door when we start talking about, regenerative, thriving ecosystems.
Yeah.
So just to back up your point, that's not common in today's day and age to talk about root causes. We're in a world of treating symptoms medically and agriculturally.
Yeah. And using that example, sometimes by addressing the symptoms, you're actually undermining or making the root cause even worse, like perpetuating that. And what I'm thinking about is if you remove the people from the observation, like, oh, you don't need to go and check the cows because they've got collars, and the computer will tell you when you come to milking which ones need to be treated. Then you've removed the person from that observation,
Yeah,
and maybe that's part of the root cause. Like people need to be more, I don't know.
I fully agree with you there, man. We are so reliant on technology. It's now become rare to. I mean, when I was in my last year of management at Harts Creek Farm, I was able to pass my farm environment audit, uh, and specifically the water monitoring section by saying I dig a hole, and apparently that's lucky for me to get through with an A. I got an A for that audit. Um, with that as a way of testing soil moisture. Now it's only they only I say they and most independent auditors will not accept that. It must be a probe
Mm.
that tells you your soil moisture as a percentage.
Isn't it amazing how a lot of people trust the technology, like they trust the reading on a digital device more than they'll trust their own senses?
That's it, man. That is it. Like you're selling out on yourself. Like Ruby said, my partner said about maybe because she doesn't want her new staff to not be able to observe. And so what she said was maybe it'll just be for me. And what I didn't say to her, but I thought in my head in that moment, I wasn't going to, put this on her, was I said, in my head, I thought, but what does the staff then think about you? You know, like needing that information that can be used, that can be observed and monitored in real time by, and there's things that, and I'm sure there's people that can resonate, and Ruby's one of them. Ruby's really clever at picking up cows that are unwell. Like she can spot cows with mastitis. She can, and sometimes there's like a gut feeling to it. It's like you just know something's not right, and you go through the procedures to look into the matter, and you find something, and you don't know what it was that struck your ears. You don't know what it was that made you look,
Mm.
but something made you look, and you found something. What happens when we disconnect that human interaction? And maybe if anyone's ever listened to the likes of I forget his name, his first name is Pascal. He was on I've referred to him a few times. He was on a John Kempf podcast. Talks about like a farm environment or even a paddock or even down at the plant level. And it's pretty out there, but I'll say it anyway, is like they need to feel a sense of contribution. And it's already and connection. Um and it's already we already live in a world where not just in New Zealand, but especially around the world, even like in America, it's even more extreme that some farmland never has human feet on it. Not just feet like bare feet, but like human footsteps. It's just tires of vehicles or machinery. And so, what does that do to not only us psychologically, being disconnected from natural systems, but then also the natural systems themselves. Like if we remove ourselves from these natural environments, what is that doing for us?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's like it almost doesn't make sense why people use natural environments so much, like hiking tracks, like parks in cities, and like riverside walks, and places where you can connect with nature are just so popular. People just are drawn to that connection
Mm.
with the landscape and with ecosystems and nature, and it's like a recharge. That's how I experience it, and it's so almost counter to some of the things that we're kind of led to believe that, oh, we want to do less work, we want to have to do less exercise to get the same output, and
Mm.
we want things to be efficient and straight lines, and not chaos everywhere and natural and wildness, like. But in fact, there's something in us that loves that
Mm.
contact with nature and soil and ecosystems.
And chaos
Yeah.
and hardship, dare I say it. We need hardship.
Mm.
I often think about what are the effects of all these e-bikes we're seeing around. Everything's based on making things easier for the human being. Meanwhile, we're dealing with the obesity pandemic and mental health crisis. It's been my experience is that it's the hardships that have you feel and experience satisfaction. It's not something to be scared of or avoid. Chaos, hardship,
Yeah.
uncertainty, madness.
Mm. Kind of grounds you in a way, like feeling a little bit of uncontrol and hardship. You kind of, well, you're just standing on the ground. It's not you're not above nature. You're not above other people. You're in hardship. Like, oh well, that's how it is. That's where I'm at right now. If you accept
Mm,
that, it's quite a free place to be.
mm. And maybe even the term hardship is a bit derelict now, for me anyway. Like it's just living, it's just life, not everything. I often say, if it was meant to all be easy, no, it's more like this. Life to me is like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down. And if you compare that to a heart rate monitor, there's similarities. It's up and down and up and down. And people want to be up here going straight.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if you compare that to a heart rate monitor, the only time that happens is when you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so maybe we can just experience hardship for just life. I
Yeah.
look at childbirth, not that I've experienced it personally. I mean, I've been there for the birth of my children. I can sort of indirectly understand. I'm not going to go there. Let's not go there.
I don't think you can.
No, I
But
cannot. And I've also witnessed the joy of a mother giving birth and how insignificant the pain is immediately after.
mm,
I love how we do this. Just go off.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just thinking about that heart rate going, I mean, the heart pulse, whatever it is, trace that goes up and down, and like breath that has to go in and out. You can't just breathe in only, because breathing in is good and breathing out is not good. You've got to have both. You've got to
Breathing
have
out
that.
is amazing, man.
Yeah.
We don't do enough of it. We're all, if you just
Yeah.
stop and
Mm, yeah. Step aside, let it out.
Makes me feel like I'm on drugs. You done any breath work, Dan?
Not really. I've done a lot of breathing. Does that count?
We all have. And we think, yeah, and I had it that breathing was just breathing, but man, there's some layers there. I started to look into Wim Hof and the breath of bliss. That was quite interesting. I remember thinking too at the time, as I'm like, the first time it hit me was when I was with Michael Mayle. He was the first person to introduce me to this breath of bliss thing, and it was an hour and 6 minutes long. And when he first said to me, "We're going to do this breathwork thing. It's going to be an hour and 6 minutes long," I was like, "What do you mean? What are we going to do for an hour and 6 minutes?" He's like, "We're just going to go in here, into this room here, and you're gonna have that mat there." And there was only one mat, and I was like, "Well, that's your mat. You have the mat." He's like, "No, you have the mat. Then you know that that's your space." And I'm like thinking to myself, "What on earth am I getting myself into here?" Of course I'm going to know where I am. He's like, "Right, we're going to put
breathing.
Yeah, it's just breathing." And put this recording on that he had purchased on this breath of bliss thing, and it's this woman guiding you through doing different breathing, and we sort of got into it, and you're following you, and you're breathing, and I can start to feel like my limbs tingling, which felt interesting. And then she's like, the lady's like, "Oh, just trust your body knows what it's doing, and just go with wherever the breath takes you." And I was sort of thinking, yeah, this is a bit weird, and then I just accepted and allowed and carried on doing the recording. And then I noticed my arms were tensing, like my fists were so tensed, and I couldn't let them go. And in that moment, when I was lying there on my back, like I didn't open my eyes. I just had an internal dialogue like, "Shit, there's something wrong here. Like, this hurts. I can't let go of." And all up my arms were just so tight and sore. And then again, she said, "Just trust what your body's doing. Just trust that you're in the right place, and you're completely safe." And then I just ended up feeling this sense of relaxation, like this letting go. And it was the most profound experience. And then I had my first, I would say, as close to as a hallucinogenic experience, where I literally, with my eyes closed, seen this beam of light initially come out of me up into the sky, and then it's reversed and came down from the sky, a white beam of light through me. And I've got my eyes closed because I'm just sort of re-experiencing this. This happened quite a few years ago. And all of a sudden, in that moment, I felt like I was in the soil of the whole earth, and that I was the earth and everyone in the earth. And then all of a sudden, it was the finish, and an hour and 6 minutes had been. And I just looked over, and I wasn't on my mat. I don't know. And I was like, "What just happened?" And I had to thank Michael for introducing me to something that I was really skeptical of initially. I don't know why I brought that up, but that was a powerful moment for me. Breathing.
Yeah, the power of breathing, not to be underestimated.
Oh yeah, yep.
Maybe let's bring it back to what it is about regenerative agriculture that is so compelling and so believable, even when there's stacks more science and more empirical evidence and more people in authority positions that back up the status quo and incremental improvement towards more technology, more output from less land, more control. There's way, way more evidence on that side. I suppose I come back to the root cause thing and the working from principles rather than practices. for me. Like it also comes to trust, which sort of ties in with a lot of this uncertainty and what if and possibilities. Having trust in the ecosystem, which is the farm, to produce healthy systems. And
What about? No, you go, man.
And that all of those parts of that system don't need controlling. It's just that trust that the principles work in nature, and therefore they will work on your farm. And I guess that's what compels me. But when I say it, it doesn't sound very. It sounds like a little bit wishy-washy. What do you reckon?
No, and I. This is a fantastic caveat into what I was going to say when I interrupted you earlier. Was trusting your gut, and the distinction between following your gut as to following your head. You know that you're right. There's all the science in the world to back up the current paradigm. However, if I was to look back retrospectively when I was in the paradigm of control and extract, is that although that was all I knew, if you asked me what it was like down here, but back then I wouldn't have listened to gut feeling, but retrospectively I did. I just whenever I had thoughts of like, what am I doing, or what is this is pretty crazy. My ego very quickly quashed that, very quickly just put that down and suppressed it to like, no, you're doing the right thing. This is it. This is and it's almost like this regenerative agriculture thing is not just going back to trusting your gut, but it's also your inner child coming out. And I can't believe I just said that, but I'm going to, because if you were to present what we have now to children who aren't polarized, and that children are honest for the most part. Young children are honest. They will say things for how they think they are. And I'd love to, I can only assume that people want this beautiful, chaotic, magical, natural, thriving ecosystem over a controlled monoculture, chemical laden, extractive food model that's focused on head only economics.
Yeah. And quite a decent earthquake just happened. As you said, children are honest. So, yeah.
Are you serious?
That resonated, man. Yeah, it was a real jolty one. It was just like,
Are you kidding me?
no. Hopefully, I think it would have been quite close. If they're short and sharp, usually means they're close by. Yeah. Well, I think we chewed that question pretty good.
We chewed some other things as well.
Thanks, Jono. Thanks, everyone who's listening.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Vanessa. I have to thank Vanessa for the cards. And thanks for listening.